You are Locked On Hawks Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into a special edition of the Hawks Postcast. I'm your host, Jarvis Davis. I got my main man with me, Deshaun, Tate. We are live right after the Hawks made their selection. The Atlanta Hawks select Zaccharie Risacher. If you've been hiding on the rock, we're going to talk about all that. We're going to give you the instant reaction. Also, we're going to dive into, will they regret selecting Zaccharie Risacher? And also, guys, July 1st is coming up here very, very quickly. Now that they've selected Risacher, we're going to discuss what's the next move. Today's episode of the Locked On Hawks Postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. I'm telling you guys need to make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, Deshaun, the Atlanta Hawks select Zaccharie Risacher with the number 1 overall pick. Now, we've been going back and forth as far as like what they should do with the pick. I know you said that, hey, I don't like the pick. I don't want to take it. I want to go in another direction. I want to try something else. Maybe they need to get some more veteran players in here. But the fact is, the Hawks selected Zaccharie Risacher, and I kind of had a good feeling that they were going to go that route. And, there were a couple reports coming out right before they made the pick that, hey, this was probably the guy. And a lot of teams around the league thought it was going to be this guy. But what was your instant reaction as far as when you heard Adam Silver call that name?
First, let me get this out of the way real quick, JD. 10 seconds, please, and thank you, only because it's draft night. Now that we got that part out of the way, just so we know where we stand.
That's how we gonna start it off.
Absolutely. Lucky I ain't have my Lokes on tonight. Underwhelming reaction. And I knew that that was likely going to be the case, especially when I found out that Sarr was not going to be working out for the team. Not in love with it. Wouldn't have been in love with it had it been Sarr or anybody else whose name is going to be called tonight or tomorrow, all 60 guys. It was going to be somewhat overwhelming to me. For me, I definitely would have went with Sarr. If it came down to the two guys, I definitely would have went with Sarr. No questions asked after giving it a little bit more thought. But, it's the wait and see game for what we do know about either one of these guys. But far as Risacher, I'm hearing all the great things. Everybody's going to come with the positive, the versatility, the defense, the instincts, the shooter that he is, and all these cute things. And I know that he has to obviously put on a little bit more weight, get a little bit more size. That was the case for Trey. That was the case for just about every guy who came through the doors. That's just a rookie thing. But I can't tell you that they hit on this one. If I had to take a guess one way or the other, I wouldn't feel very confident about it. However, much like most people that are watching this and most people that are watching draft tonight, haven't really been able to give that fair assessment because you haven't really had the access to him the same way that we would like to have a little bit better feeling about the pick.
Yeah, I think, for them overall, it's an interesting pick to me because when you think about what, Sarr brings to the table and you think about what you are rostering, I know we're going to get into that in the next segment about will the Hawks regret not taking Sarr. And I kind of got some very, I would say, interesting thoughts on that. But just from my reaction is I really feel like Zaccharie Risacher is interesting because the Hawks have had issues finding wings to insert into that starting lineup. We got a guy like DeAndre Hunter who is a wing who's supposed to be that 3-and-D guy, that defensive lockdown guy, and he just hasn't been that. And even when we've seen flashes of it, maybe we know that we're not probably going to see it more than 45 or 50 games. You see what I'm saying? Because the guy just can't stay on the court. He just can't figure it out. He just don't understand. So I feel like keep trying to go get the wing spot. I don't necessarily have an issue with that, but man, it just seems like a project to me, man. It just seems like a project, because what is he going to do for you this year? What is he going to be able to bring to the table to help you win more games? Because Landry Fields said, hey, we knew the famous words that Trae Young dropped, right? We knew that he said, hey, I want to win.
Yep.
I want to stay in Atlanta, but I want to win.
Yep.
Those two things can't go together. You see what I'm saying? So
absolutely,
that concerns me. But Landry Fields came out and said that, hey, we want to win too, in response to what Trae had to say. So
I think
if they want to win, how is Zaccharie Risacher going to help you do that in the 2024-25 season?
And I understand, I understand what you're saying, especially based on the fact that what he does is going to mean so much more for this team going forward, kind of like what you're saying. Is someone like let's cut the baloney. Let's call it what it is.
Let's do it.
Is Trae willing to sit? Is a guy like Trae willing to sit back and wait on this kid to develop after putting in his 6 years and leading this team to a place that it's never been before? That being the Eastern Conference Finals with winning games in it. I don't know, but that's obviously your cash cow at this point. And so you do want to appease him to some degree. Right. But I a part of making the pick and making the selection in general is kind of based off of how comfortable and confident that you feel about what your backcourt looks like and being able to retain the two guys that you have and how much you're really under the heat lamp like the fries at Mickey D's as to whether you have to get rid of one of them or not. Because I'll tell you what, if you already have a pretty good feeling that one of these guys is either about to be traded or really having one foot out the door, if not both feet by this point, then would it have been a super bad idea to go with a guard who I feel the safest guy in this draft certainly was a guy. Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out.
Okay, I'm here.
I believe, no questions asked, the safest pick in this draft was Stephon Castle, a guy from right here in his own backyard
literally right down the street from me in Covington.
Literally
right down the street from me.
This guy. Now, I'm going to get a lot of pushback. Bring it forward, right? But again, based on the premise of what does the future look like from the guard spot, I feel a little bit more confident and comfortable in a guy that I trust, and I've been able to put eyes on him. But we'll save that for the next segment. But I will just say that you also did not really get anything from a standpoint where you have to get a big at some point that is going to be able to provide you a decent balance in combination of offensive ability, right? And a good defensive anchor in the middle. And you didn't address that part either. We've seen the way this looked with potential and all this stuff. I saw how excited people was at Cam Reddish a couple years ago. I don't forget anything, right? That was another
failed attempt at drafting a wing.
I mean, and I don't like to. Kevin Huerter was not bad by no means, by no stretch, especially as a wing or a two guy or whatever it is, what have you. He definitely developed more on the defensive side, amongst other things, but that didn't really work out all that well either. That wasn't through the roof, and it certainly wasn't what you was calling it to be. Golden State Warriors 2.0 when you got him and assumed that he would play that role of a Klay Thompson.
Oh gosh, no.
Remember that conversation? Am I making things up?
I do.
I make sure I'm not making things up because Amari Spellman was part of that too.
Yeah, it was a lot of interesting conversations that
Sure.
and names and nicknames that were brought, once Travis Slank was hired. Now, granted, I people want to say what they want to say about Travis Slank. He built the roster that got you to the Eastern Conference Finals, and hey, it probably was a injury away from at least being in Game 7 with a chance to go to the NBA Finals, right?
Sure.
And this
Sure.
team has done nothing but go downhill ever since then. And we understand that Trey has never played with an all-star before, ever. He's never had an all-star teammate. So yeah, this pick of Zaccharie Risacher. I hope down the road that he turns into this guy, because I don't see it happening anytime soon.
I want to tell you what the feeling is here, and then I also want to get your opinion on something. The feeling is that they're just running on a rat wheel. They're doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And that's one of the first mistakes personally that I think that they made with trying to run it back with the Eastern Conference Finals team and run it back and having continuously having belief to the point where I don't think we always realize how big of a part somebody like a Lou Williams was on that team. However, do you I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, Jarvis, if I'm just being honest. I want to give Researcher the benefit of the doubt. But if we're having expectations that this guy is going to look like anything remotely close to a typical number one pick, then I think we're fooling ourselves, if I'm just being honest.
Yeah, I won't get into a space where I'm fooling myself with this team, because I understand what I'm dealing with. I understand what I'm looking at. I understand who's in control. And it's not one person, like when you have multiple cooks in the kitchen,
No
the
doubt.
meal ain't gonna turn out right all the time. I promise you. I promise you, it's gonna be something wrong with it. And I think
Grandma didn't even allow nobody in her kitchen.
exactly.
Baby.
She told everybody to get the hell out. Get out the kitchen. So yeah, this is what we're dealing with. This is what we're dealing with. Now, coming up next, we're gonna talk about maybe Zaccharie Risacher was the wrong ingredient. We'll talk about that next. But first, I got to let you know that this episode of the Hawks Podcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors, everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and much, much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered, guys, with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You always find exactly what you're looking for at eBay Motors. And I'm telling you, I had to get a headlight for my truck because I've been riding around with one light, looking like my truck been blinking somewhere. I've been riding around for one light. I had to go to eBay Motors and go get it. And plus, eBay Motors has a guaranteed fit where your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. So yeah, go to eBay Motors right now and go get what you need for your car, because you got to take care of your baby. If you don't take care of your baby, it's not going to take care of you. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guarantee fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Jarvis, Davis, Deshaun, Tate, right here on the Hawks Postcast Special Draft Edition. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We talked about earlier, gave some instant reaction, Deshaun, about Zaccharie Risacher. I think both of us can kind of come to the conclusion that, hey, we're not necessarily really excited about the pick. Now, there was a very interesting situation that happened 6 years ago where the Luka Doncic put on a Hawks hat, and for a hot second, he was a Atlanta Hawk. And then we found out that, hey, Dallas drafted Trae Young, and then they did what they needed to do to make that trade happen. Now, here we are where the Alex Sarr supposedly, or his agent in his camp said, you know what, we're not going to work out for y'all. More than likely, we don't want our guy to come play for you all. And we know what was going on with all of that stuff, right? And dealing with all that drama leading up to the draft. Are we going to look 3 or 4 years down the road now, and Zaccharie Risacher is coming off the bench for the Hawks, and Quin Snyder probably done got fired, and Alex Sarr is up here leading the Wizards to a playoff run? Are we going to be sitting there 3 years from now looking at that?
I'm not willing to go that far. I don't have that much confidence in talking about Washington having that kind of success. Mm-hmm. They definitely need to be calling for somebody to pack up, their office in the event that we come anywhere remotely close to that being the case. And I do understand and overstand rather that, why take a guy who didn't want to work out for you? Why take a guy who didn't want to be here? All of those things. Does he really have to play if he was selected? ... Whatever all those things mean. Mm-hmm. I am one that does certainly live, even though I believe that Sarr definitely would have been the guy selected on my board. But I kind of also live in the space, JD, that if somebody don't want to be here, I'm not forcing you to be here. That goes for anybody. Okay. That goes for everybody. That goes for relationships. That goes for family. That goes for friends. Nobody's forcing you to be a part of this and what I'm trying to create. Love to have you. But if you don't want to be here, don't let the door kick you on the way out. So I get that part too.
Don't know I've hit you with a good law split you.
Hey, come on, man. See, now you're doing this. I should have known my boy JD gonna come with something.
I was gonna get something in. Come on now. But here's my thing with Sardo, man. Here's why I feel like the Hawks will regret it. What is the Hawks' biggest need? First thing to come to mind. Mm-hmm. A defender, right?
Defense, yeah.
Down low, right? How old is Clint Capella? He would got 1 year left on his contract.
Sure.
Is Clint Capella the same guy that the Hawks traded for from the Houston Rockets?
JD, I think he is. Here's the issue that I have with that.
Hold up, but let me finish. I'll let you respond. Let me finish.
Okay.
So I feel like Sarr can be his replacement. And if you're telling me that Sarr is going to be Clint Capella 5.0 because he's more athletic, he has he has some outside game. Now, granted, he has to work on his shooting, but he already has that as part of his game. And you're not asking, in Clint Capella, nobody's asking him to shoot the ball at all. Outside of 12 to 13 feet, because he can barely make 6 to 7 feet sometimes,
sure.
As far as finishing at the rim.
Many times.
Right. So we want to get into that. But so I feel like just given the fit, just the 7'1", rim runner, excellent defender, potentially can be a factor for you in year one on the defensive side of the basketball. And not really, because at this point, I don't really care about the scoring because I feel like the Hawks don't have issues scoring. They don't. Their issues are on the defensive side. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where their issues are. Like, they can't stop a nosebleed, right? Every time I hated watching them play against the Pacers this year. I hate it.
Oh my
God. Was not exciting to me.
Oh my God.
It was a bloviated all-star game when they played against the Indiana Pacers, and I absolutely despised it, right? So I feel like from that standpoint, that's why I feel like they're going to regret it, because you're still going to have to go out and go find somebody to replace Clint Capella. And I feel like Sarr could have done that. Now, I know you got a little riled up there, just for right there, but about Clint, because I know you seem like you about to come on to his defense. So you got the floor, my brother.
I think Clint Capella probably is pretty close to being the same guy that he was when he came in. The issue that is the actual issue that I do have. You understand what I'm saying? I don't think that there's been too much, and I know what he can do. I know what he can't do. The thing that I do like and appreciate about Clint is that he doesn't try to do many things outside of what he know that he can do from what he cannot do. And I can appreciate that because not everybody comes to the floor with that. When it comes to guys like Alex Sarr, if Alex Sarr was Tyson Chandler, DeAndre Jordan,
Prime DeAndre Jordan, prime Tyson Chandler,
DeAndre Ayton, would you feel like it was worthy? Now, of course, at that point, hindsight being 2020, we have to ask ourselves, what is Risacher, right? Is he Nicholas Batum? Is he, just one of these wing guys with a bunch of potential, whatever, what have you? But my question is, in the event that we decided to go that direction, what does this mean for guys like Onyeka Okongwu, who has played the backup role for quite a few years, more than enough years now? He gets in there and he has moments where he looked like, okay, I'm all in on him being the starter. Get rid of Clint. I'm all about him being the guy that's there tipping the ball off. But then you have those other instances where he just doesn't look like he's ready to be a starter. And I see personally more of the latter than I do what I previously said. However, I cannot ignore the more and more that we saw him as a starter, the more and more he began to look like a starter. So I just kind of wanted to throw that particular piece out there. But it's no secret that one thing I've been saying about this team for the last few years, not one or two, is that the only thing that I see consistent is that they have been consistently inconsistent.
Yeah. It's hard not to be in a space where you doubt every move that this team makes, especially when you have an inexperienced guy like Landry Fields, so-called making the final decisions, and those are, like I said, if you have to be asked if you're the final decision maker, you aren't.
That's enough for me.
You aren't. But as far as, Onyeka Okongwu, and we're going to talk about where the Hawks go from here and coming up in the next segment. But as far as Onyeka Okongwu goes, I feel like he has something. It's something there, but I don't necessarily know if it's enough for me to insert him in that starting lineup. Because I feel like consistently going against that first group or that starting lineup night in and night out, I don't think he's going to be having an advantage, on a consistent basis. But however, if you bring him off the bench in that second rotation, man, I'm telling you, he's gonna have some advantage that he can take care of, right? And then when he expanding his game and shooting that corner three, adding that to his repertoire, I feel like he's on to something. But I just don't feel like he quite has all of it that he needs, and that's just from a size standpoint, because Hawks need size, man. And I just don't feel like him going into that starting lineup will help. But we'll talk about on the other side, what does this roster construction look like? Where is Landry Fields headed going next and come July 1st? This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Guess what, guys? I don't know if you noticed this or not, but I love sports. I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. And the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. All you got to do is just sit there and just think about it. Deshaun, I know you can close your eyes too, man, and dream about what type of bets you want to bet so you can win you some money, because that's what it's all about, man. Win some change so you can, take your lady out or your significant other out. Man, let you get some good money. Bring money to the house. Everybody happy, right? So, and this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That means every day, a boost or a bonus. All customers. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So, well, here's what I need you to do. I need you to head over to fanduel.com/locked on. That's fanduel.com/locked on and start making the most out of your summer. Stop sitting on the couch and being a loser. Go get some money and go to /locked on. FanDuel, official sportsbook betting partner of Major League Baseball. Wrapping things up on this special edition of the Hawks Postcast, the Atlanta Hawks select Zaccharie Risacher. Oh my God, we gave you an instant reaction. We talked about whether or not they're going to regret not taking Sarr. I feel some type of way about that because, man, a center, replacing Clint Capella so he can go on about his way, trade him to a contender, and do what he needs to do in order to try to get him a championship, because he's not going to get it here. But I think it will behoove us, Tate, to talk about where the Hawks go from here, because we know and we understand what's coming up. That's free agency, July 1st. And the trades have already started, right? We talk about the New York Knicks. They are going for it. They are all in. You talking about sitting in 4 unprotected first round picks to the Brooklyn Nets, for Mikal Bridges. Yeah, like you really going for it. And then they go ahead and then they follow that up with OG Anunoby re-signing with the team. So they are going with this notion that, hey, if you ain't got no wings, dog, you gonna lose in the Eastern Conference, because the Boston Celtics ain't going anywhere anytime soon. So what do you feel is the priority now? Now that we know that Zaccharie Risacher is that 3-and-D versatile guy, ideally, for them on that roster, where do you feel like the next move needs to be for Landry Fields, or what decision needs to be made going forward so this team cannot be in the play-in tournament in 2024 and 2024?
But before we even get to a point where we're mentioning a name, I think we got to find an identity first. Who are we? Where are we? Know where we're trying to go. We're trying to go to the same place that everybody else is trying to go.
Right.
But how are we going to get there? And we got to be realistic with ourselves. There's just been a lot of turnover. You talked about all the cooks in the kitchen, and we could talk about that for days. But I think you got to find out exactly on top of having an identity. Eventually, you will have to get to a point where you are shutting down conversations about trade, Deshaun. That has to be done. We're working it out between the two of them, and we're standing on that. There ain't no I don't knows and all that kind of stuff to go with it. Outside of that, I hope we don't have too many more conversations about DeAndre Hunter being a starter. Okay. There's no secret that DeAndre Hunter coming off of the bench after an injury looks significantly different. Did he play as a starter like a guy who got selected? We moved up to go and select the guy at number 4 in the draft about a handful of years ago or so. Probably doesn't look like that guy. But what he did coming off of the Oak, I thought was a lot more beneficial and a lot more realistic for what we thought that he would be. I personally like the pieces that we have. I think that we need more concrete, efficient shooters. Obviously, the defense, we don't even have to get into that. That's at the top of the list beyond everything. I think we all know that. But I think that with having Bogey Bogdanovic, that really being the only guy that I feel confident can give me the most consistency in terms of from a shooting standpoint. Trey is a shooter. We get it. Sometimes it can be erratic. Sometimes there's 17 seconds still left on the clock and it's going up in the air. I I've been saying for so long that I would like to see more adults. I think there needs to be more voice, more vocal leadership in the locker room. Guys who are not afraid to speak up. Guys
Right.
that you know, when we start talking about I don't know who the vocal leader is on this team. And in fact, I do know who the vocal leader is on this team. And naturally, it is DeJounte Murray. However, we don't see that unless number 11 is sitting down. Then he's the leader that we need him to be vocally, emotionally, and everything else, getting the guys riled up and everything else. Outside of that, we don't see that. And that can't be a
Let me ask you
sometime
this.
thing.
So with that being said,
Sure.
should the Hawks consider trading Trey? Since we know that DeJounte Murray, and for some strange reason, he's not willing to do it when Trey is on the court, whether that be he's not trying to outshine him or trying to make him look bad or anything like that. Should the Hawks say, you know what, Trey, thank you for your services. We got DeJounte Murray on a pretty team-friendly deal, and we're going to build around Mr. Murray.
Number one, you're going to end up losing him if you don't. That's the concerning part behind. That's one of the reasons behind why you probably at least entertain the idea to some degree. The concerning part for that, however, and what I think there's a lot of truth to, and just what I believe, even if nobody else believes it, is that that's something that they're afraid to do. And I don't blame them for that, because he's probably what most people would say is the second best player to ever walk through these doors. The first one, obviously, as
Number 21.
Got a statue right outside of the building, and you've
No doubt.
seen what they did with him. We
And
don't
they
need to go
traded
back. We don't need to go back to Danny Manning's and a pack of family size M&Ms.
Come on, bro.
Peanut M&Ms. That being said, right, it almost feels very untrustworthy. I think they're
right now, man.
I'm just telling you the truth, bro. I mean, listen, I told you this on the phone the other day. I'm not from here. I've been here just made 19 years. You're from here. The people are tired of the shenanigans. You
Absolutely.
had this GM over here, Schlink, this, that. You had Danny Ferry, this, that. It's too much. It's too much turnover. We're talking about 3 coaches, technically 4 if you add the interim. In the last 4 years, everybody has done probably about 1.5 to 2 years apiece for the most part. There's not a lot of consistency there. And I know I'm going all the way around the world just to come back to the point, but you got to get that. You have to have a leader in this locker room. You have to have somebody that's not going to be afraid to speak up and say, hey, listen, I'm done with the, if it ain't you, it's him. If it ain't him, it's you. And y'all back and forth and this, that, and the other, film session, blah, blah, blah. All these different things going around. I'm about trying to win. Whoever with me, I don't care if it's the last guy on the bench. Whoever's with me, come on, let's go. I'd rather get destroyed by 50 with a bunch of guys out there who want to play and going to give 110% than guys that are just going to be whining and crying and act like they only want to be sometimey, if that's even a word, when it comes to playing. The last thing I'll mention, JD, when I was mentioning something about the shooting, and I appreciate them for their services. When it comes to the beat Krejci's starting roles, when it comes to the give me the other gentleman's name, JD.
Seth Lundy?
No, not Lundy. Guy was a shooter, very efficient this year. Very efficient this year. Tattoos, can't think of the name. Nonetheless, there's a reason for that, even that I can't think of the name. Guys in starting roles that shouldn't be. When Trey goes out, or this one or that one, or whatever the case may be, I think that they have just really not done a great job with upgrading the talent coming off of the bench either. They shouldn't have been in many positions that they were going down the tail end of the season to get ready to conclude it. Fringe uncertainty as to whether they were or were not 1 or 2 games away from being in a play-in position and starting some of the guys that they were. And those guys gave it their all, and I give them a lot of credit. Matthews, thank you very much. I appreciate you. I'm definitely not going to repeat who
Thanks,
gave
Jamal.
me that
Appreciate that.
information. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that. But Matthews was the guy. And those guys played very well. Forgive me for getting long with it. Those guys played well considering their role. But we got extremely, extremely lucky with the 2 wins that we had against the Boston Celtics that were as surprising as they could be in back-to-back games. Correct. And those guys appreciate you for your services. But that can't happen again, or we got to get ready to turn in the card.
Yeah, so let me put a bow on this thing, man. So I feel like ultimately, from what you're saying and how I'm feeling, the Hawks have to make a decision on, is it going to be Trey or DeJounte? You can't. Both of them can't be on this roster come the fall. They can't. That just can't happen. And I'll be interested to see once they make that decision. Then I feel like those other dominoes will start to fall as well. Because do you trade Bogdanovich? Do you listen to offers for DeAndre Hunter? I mentioned this already. I feel like Clint Capella, it is time for him to go. He has 1 year left on his contract. Somebody will be willing, a contender will be willing to take on that, to give what you say is all he's been able to give. So I think, overall, with the Hawks selecting Zaccharie Risacher, we at least got a good idea. They're at least trying to fall in line with those big wings being in the Eastern Conference and knowing that, hey, at least for today and going forward, if you don't have a lot of those guys that can really play some basketball, you're not going to get out the Eastern Conference and you're not going to beat the Boston Celtics anytime soon. So we want to say thank you. Thank you guys for joining this special edition of the Hawks postcast. Right after the pick, we were right on. As soon as they made their pick, we hopped right on here just for you guys. We appreciate you guys for all the comments, all of the likes, the subscribes. Make sure, if you haven't done any of those things, make sure you do that and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're free and available wherever you download your podcast, and wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. That is how everyone finds out about us. So negative, positive, we appreciate you. And also be on the lookout for the Atlanta Sports Party tomorrow, where we'll be downloading some more on this Hawks draft. So make sure you guys come back for that, and we'll see you then.